Hello. I'm not sure if this is on yet. I guess it is. It says live. Ah! I'm finally here. I can't tell if this is focusing. Um, First of all, I apologize. I have had numerous technical difficulties this evening, and so it's been a bit of a challenge to get this rolling. Let me see if I can. That's really bright. That's too bright. Ah! Hi! Can you see me? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share, and I'm going to try to keep it about an hour and 15 minutes. And the first thing I just want to say is thank you. Thank you for being here with me, and in so many ways. I'm going to tell you right off the bat that I will totally get emotional and cry my eyes out. I have tissues prepared, and at certain times when I go back in my past, because I try to really be there when I'm talking about things and when I'm sharing, my language will very much reflect that. So this is not a share for kids. Those that just know me on here, I really try to watch my mouth on social media. But in real life, there are often times that I swear like a sailor. For those that know me, they're like, fuck yeah! Anyway, I'm gonna try to tone it down, but I'm just giving you a heads up. This is not for the little people. So, my name is Heather Peterson Lockhart. I go by the Chieftess. I am in recovery from a multitude of things, from the human condition. And today is my 11-year sober anniversary from alcohol, which was, well, I guess the major offender in my downfall. So when I have a little disclaimer also. When I share some of these things, my primary purpose is to share my story and my business. So when I start sharing, obviously I have interactions and relationships with other people. So if the story starts to get in a place where I feel like maybe it's too much of their personal business, then I'm going to shut it down and just tell you guys that's why. Just because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to keep the focus on me. So I always find it interesting when I get opportunity to share about this, because when I think I became problematic, totally changes. When I first started telling a story of recovery, I thought I became problematic in my late teens and early 20s. And then I totally realized that wasn't the case. The next time it was a little bit earlier, and now I'm pretty much thinking like I had issues when I popped out the womb. But I'm actually serious. So, I understand today that my alcoholism is just a symptom of my disease. And to me, the disease is the human condition. There's a big God-sized hole that we're trying to shovel shit in to make ourselves feel better. And there's different substances, behaviors, and thought forms that we use. And the one that red flagged me and red flagged the state of Virginia and those around me was alcohol. But that way of existing started for me much earlier, much before alcohol became a problem. So when I was thinking about sharing today, and I never know what's going to come up, I just absolutely want to be here in the moment and see what it is this time. So I was thinking about how from a very young age, I felt like a weirdo. From a very young age, I felt like a weirdo. I felt like an outsider. I thought people saw me as a weirdo, and I thought that I was totally too much for people. I realize now years later, of course, that's how I saw myself. So I distanced myself from people. But as a very intuitive, empathic, tuned-in person, I was very tuned in to people when I was younger. And my observation and interaction with people is that most people are not very tuned in, and they don't like to be seen authentically. And so a lot of people, when they meet someone who's able to see them like that, it makes them uncomfortable. So I was very aware of that at a very young age. I was very aware of the fact that I would meet grown-ups, and they would tell me, they would be talking about whatever, and I would be able to feel that the sentiment coming from their heart was not aligned with the words coming out of their mouth. And I would say things like that when I was little. And, I think from a little kid, it looks like you're calling grown-ups on their shit, which was not my intention. But I quickly learned that let me say this. I assumed the understanding that I should keep these perceptions to myself. So I chose to become I had this whole little thing going on in my head. I thought everybody thought a certain way about me, so I distanced myself, but I thought it was them, And then, and that was really young. And I grew up in a military family. We moved around a lot. The way I see things now is completely different than the way I saw things when I was younger. When I was younger, and I used to share this story, I used to call my parents the Great Santini and Rasputin. My father is a retired Army general. My mother is very, very intuitive and empathic and insightful and creative and just tuned in. Like, I got caught sneaking out because my mom had a vibe. You know what I mean? You can't get around that crap. So I call her Rasputin. For those who are not familiar, it's a mad monk from Russia. You can Google it and come up with it. But anyway, my when we were younger, I felt like my father ran the house like like he ran the military. So I was kind of always in rebel mode, and I had a chip on my shoulder about that nobody understood me, and things were so controlling at home, and I just always felt like nobody got me and nobody was in support of me, and I felt very I felt alone and on the outside. Now, mind you, I always had a face that every time we moved to a new state and got to a new place, the boys would pay attention to me, which would piss off the girls, so the girls didn't like me, and that was always a not so comfy assimilation, that military upbringing. So, I should have warned you that too. If I lose my train of thought, I used to get totally embarrassed about it. Now I'm just like, damn it, somebody remind me so I can get right back where I was. I remember. I had this face that I got attention for, and so on the outside, I had a very extroverted character that I think looked like I felt like I fit quite in, or I fit in quite well, rather. I have always been able to get up and speak in front of people, even though you have no idea how many times I've had to pee right before I got up there and how my heart feels like it's about to pound out my mouth. But I don't know. I seem to balance it well. So I've always had this outside that never really showed you what was going on the inside. And that part came naturally. I've always been... I came from a really strong family. It was a really strong family. We know how to stand up and balance our voice and put our best foot forward. When we used to tell this story before, I would say I came from a family of conquerors where, you didn't say things like, I don't know and I'm uncomfortable. You figured it out. And if you didn't know, then you pounded harder. A lot has changed in my family since then. A lot has changed with, my parents, of course, and me. So, a lot different than it used to be. But, pretty kind of hardcore. I don't know. It's hard this time. My reflection is very different this time. I see my parents in a completely different capacity. I should say, when I was younger, I felt it was very hardcore. I felt that they had their thumb over me. I felt that I was under the thumb. I felt that I felt persecuted. And so I remember, I wouldn't get in trouble like, huge. I got arrested for the first time in the 9th grade because, I shoplifted some jewelry. Didn't need it. Don't know why. Just felt like it. Just wanted to do what I wanted to do, I was getting in trouble by my freshman year. I was ducking out of class and I was pissing off my teachers on purpose. I really enjoyed pissing off my teachers on purpose. I was a hood rat when I was younger in that way. Like, when I was in 6th grade, no, was that 6th, 7th? Yeah. I used to try to get kicked out of class in the hallway at the same time as a couple boys, and we would play cards. That was in middle school. And then into those years in the 9th grade and up, I was consciously trying to piss some teachers off and get kicked out of class. And then I remember in that year, all my teachers had a conference, and my parents came in, and they said that their problem with me was that I manipulated the system. And they asked me what I thought about it, and I said, well, I think if I so easily manipulate your system, perhaps you should revise your system and not the 14-year-old. And I saw a split second of like on my dad's face, but it was very quickly stowed, and I was in trouble because that was disrespectful. I was grounded 9 of 12 months of my freshman year. Grounding in my house meant in your room. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have devices, so it was no devices or anything. But it was no TV, no phone. So that was 9 of the 12 months of my freshman year. So that's how that went. And I shared this story so that you can understand the mindset. I wasn't going to play by your rules. I was going to start my own. I went on like that. I tried, let's see here. By my freshman year, I was anorexic and bulimic. As an athlete, I would not eat my breakfast, not eat my lunch, throw up my dinner. And I had to eat the dinner because my parents were there. My parents would watch me. But I could get by with the breakfast and the lunch. Till my brother busted me. My brother heard me one time. And he called me on it. And we had a talk with my parents. My parents had a hard time digesting that one, meaning my parents really didn't want to see that at the time. Because I mean, like I said, I held more blame and animosity towards others, when I was younger, and I used to share this story. I don't now. My dad couldn't understand how I could have any kind of eating disorders when, because of my physical appearance, I got attention everywhere I went. I used to get attention from older men, and it used to really bother my brother and my dad, especially when I was younger. So I don't think he could understand that. And so it didn't go much further than that, and I became much more clever about hiding the things that I knew were, not exactly mainstay for others. So I continued that in through sophomore year, and then let's see here, junior year in high school. I moved again, and I had left the life. When you're a junior in high school, I left the life that was my perfect life in high school. And what am I trying to say? That when in that perspective, in the 10th grade, that was the perfect life. This was going to be I was going to get married to this person. We were going to have this life. I was going to live in this place, and it was this big. You know what I mean? And so when I moved, it was not okay, is my point. And then, excuse me. my junior year, we moved to a new state, and we moved to Rhode Island. And it was completely different, absolute and total culture shock for me. I had come from a school that had carpet on the floor, and we had an Olympic-sized pool that we had to take a swimming class our 9th grade year, which I tried to not get my hair wet until the teacher found out what I was doing, and then gave extra credit points to those who would dunk me. Little tasty tidbit there. Anyway. It's so funny. Just go by the rules, Heather. Anyway, so I was in a school where there was bars on the windows, and there were girls trying to kick my ass at the track meet. And I remember, it was just wild. I remember being in the blocks and hearing that, like, Shanice, don't let that white bitch beat you. And I looked left and I looked right. I was like, oh, I'm the white bitch. So it was cool because I got exposed to a completely different way of a lot. And I got to bloom where I was planted again, as my mother used to say. And it was a very different culture. And I learned very much to be a chameleon. After this many moves, I learned to speak in different ways, behave in different ways, model myself, so that I guess I just went with the flow, to a degree. But I was pretty much done with it by my junior year in high school. So junior year in high school, I took my first drink, and I remember I got plowed drinking beer, and I think my parents were utterly shocked because, I really, at that point, I got in trouble for running my mouth and being, like, resistant in that regard, but I wasn't really a troublemaker, So, me coming home, I was the one that was always like, you better do this, you better do that. So, for me to come home like that, I think everybody was just kind of like, what the? And it really wasn't my habit at that point, because I remember I came home, my dad had knee surgery, I came home late, he couldn't, because otherwise he would have been at the door, I'm sure, but he was in bed because of knee surgery. I went around, sat next to him, almost on his knee, too close to his knee, and it was just bad. And then, God, that just triggered another one. What I didn't like about it was I didn't like feeling out of control. I didn't like not being in control of my body. I had always been the recipient of a whole lot of male attention. And I have never felt safe not being on full alert at every second. So I didn't like something that I felt like made me unaware of my surroundings and unable to really focus on who was focusing on me. So, went through, oh wait, I take that back, I forgot, I just lied. I took my first drink, I drank in my freshman year, but it was just a kind of an isolated thing. I didn't really like it, because same thing, I got drunk, I fell down the front steps of the front of the house, like literally the whole front steps, hit the bottom, laughed my ass off, thought it was funny as shit, in the way that I always do. And, that was it. It just was like not fun. It was no bell ringer. So, junior year passes, senior year comes, we move again. We move for me. We move from my family, military, splits up and moves to a different place so that I will be in a high school where I can finish high school, where I know people. And I've had enough of high school at that point. It was a really rough move for my family to be separated. So my family was struggling with multiple issues, and my young brother was having a hard time. So it just was kind of like, it just was unraveling. I felt like it was just way too much all over, too many places. I couldn't focus, and I found meth. Let's see here. I'm trying to think which happened first. I left my house at 17. I left my parents' house in an argument with my mother. And I left and I moved in with my boyfriend, who was much older at the time. And he kind of looked out for me in the way that he could. Like, when there were other people around, you know, doing hard drugs and partying, he kind of, everybody knew not to bring it to me. Everyone knew that I was off limits, even though I was like, hey! But at the same time, this particular man at this particular time wasn't in a place where he was really taking care of himself. So that that was a volatile relationship. He was actively alcoholic at the time. And let's see here. I think we're far enough back that I can tell stories and no one's going to know who I'm talking about. That is like, if I look back on it, I'm thinking this is kind of like this is the gate to where my dating life, my way of existing, my life in general just gets nuts. And shit is on because, you know, it's a law of attraction universe and I'm whacked at this point. So this guy is drinking and out of control, and I choose to get out of that situation. That's not good. So I leave that, and of course I get in my own apartment and I immediately get another boyfriend. An equally ginormous dude, because at this point, to me, men are only about 6'3" and above, and 225 and above. I don't know if I said my dad, he's not quite as now because he has some back issues and he slumped over, but my dad was 6'6". Grandpa's 6'8", uncles are 6'9", grandma's 6 foot. So I had this understanding of men being huge men when I was younger. So anyway, point is that that didn't go well, and old boyfriend showed up to let me know how he felt in front of new boyfriend. Ended up taking a swing at my head, knocking me into this one who jumped into him, bounced my face into the back of the door. I'll never forget the perfect, beautiful red lip print with a smear straight down where my face went to the door and then slid down to the ground. Huge shiner. That was my first one. Wow. I was 18. Yep. Okay. So, at that point, somewhere in around there, shortly after that, that's right. Wow, I'm doing pretty good. I pick up crystal methamphetamine, and I'm doing meth Monday through Friday, not on the weekends. Get a load of this, because I'm dating an Air Force Academy cadet, and he has the weekends off, and we spend the weekends together. So, of course, you can't know I'm a drug addict. So it was really funny, too, because on the weekends I would come off meth, and for those who don't know, well, I have gone 4 days and 5 nights without sleeping. By the 5th night, I remember sitting in front of food that was my favorite food, wishing so badly I could eat it. I was crying, unable to listen to anything, absolutely anything, any noise. I couldn't drive, nothing. Whacked out of my damn gourd. God. So, I would come off it on the weekends, and I would sleep a lot and I would eat a lot. I would eat like a whole pizza to myself on the weekend. And it was funny because he and his friends and their girlfriends would always be like, I don't know how you eat that much and stay that skinny. And I would always be bullshitting like, oh, I work out, I have a high metabolism. I was never like, I just snorted a bunch of shit on my nose and I haven't eaten in 3 days, you know? Anyway, so that was my deal. I would pretty much party Monday through Friday, and then I would come off on the weekends. I hung out with a group of people that was 10 years older than me. My best friend at that time was a beautiful woman. She was I was 19, she was 29. She was gorgeous, and she was a professional runway model and a professional print model. And I went with her one day, and I was smarting off and messing around. I remember, because we were both on drugs, And so I was always designated driver whenever we were partying, when I was with anybody, on any drug, anytime. Like, I mean, I've always had the ability to look at what's going on in front of my face and realize that this is the reality that I'm seeing, that I'm processing through my senses, but it might not be exactly what is. So I should take it with a grain of salt, if you will. Like, I remember one time I was driving with a car full of people, and the lines on the side of the road were floating away like ribbons. Oh, I was on acid. I forgot to say that. And so I remember thinking, "Ooh, they look pretty, but if you cross them, we die." so I've always had that ability, and so I've always been designated driver. So, oh gosh, I lost my place there. Let me find myself. Where was I? Something about driving and, geez, maybe somebody can tell me. Can you tell me what I was saying? Let's see here. I got it. That's right. I would always drive her to her modeling things because she was too whacked out of her gourd to drive. And we were so crazy. I was so crazy. I mean, I used to drive with a loaded gun, make her pump gas, because I figured if I got out, we were two wild, good-looking, crazy chicks, and if someone tried to jack me, well, she would be too out of it to shoot them. So my feeling was that I needed to drive and be able to shoot people while she got out the car and pumped gas so I could, keep eyes on her. That's how whack the thought process was. So I remember at this time I took her to a modeling thing, and I remember I had just thrown on some dude's shirt that was there at the time, and some jeans, and I was messing around in front of the camera when we were there, screwing around, and the dude was like, "You need to be doing this professionally." So I started doing some modeling then, but I really only paid attention to it, took jobs, and showed up when I wanted money for drugs. So probably could have been an extremely lucrative career, but I had my own agenda and the things I wanted to do. So there you have it. Let's see. That went on for a while, and then one day, it was crazy. She was 29 turning 30, this friend of mine, and she felt like her life was over. She was absolutely done. And she felt like it had just come to an end. And so she wanted to just like hang up all, she just really didn't know what to do with herself. Like that was it. Like to be turning 30 as a model was just like the end of the road. And that blew me away because she was beautiful, she was smart, she was charming. And I could see that she just was so empty. And she just didn't have anything, no sense of herself to fill her up. It just was literally in her face, which was still beautiful, but I don't know. I guess I just saw in that moment, like, the emptiness, and I didn't want that for myself. I absolutely didn't want that for myself, so I decided I was done with meth. And I decided in that moment I was done with that life, those people, all of it. I just said enough. And, I mean, like, the next day I was done. And I didn't do it again. And I didn't hang out with those people anymore. Shortly after that, I was in a car accident, and I had a closed head injury. And I don't remember the next 6 months to year of my life, maybe even longer. So I moved at that point from Colorado to Virginia, and I moved in with my family. And I was extremely depressed. And I got on antidepressants for a while, which I don't think they helped with my depression. I think they just whacked me out in a different way. But anyway, it probably would have been like a really good, it would have been a better analysis of whether or not they worked if I hadn't been doing, street drugs at the same time in tandem. Which I was. During that time, I really started exploring with some different drugs. And I was supposed to be going to college. And I mean, I was there. My body was there. But I wasn't exactly doing the work in any way. So I was just cruising through life, avoiding life, living off my parents, dotting the I's and crossing the T's enough to, like, you know, say I was there and get a grade, but I really was just wasting time and drowning my parents' resources and not doing anything with it. So, at that point, let's see here, I kind of just bullshit till I'm like 21. And then at 21, at 21 it's on. At 21 it's on because I start cocktailing at a strip club. And I very quickly become a functional alcoholic. I forgot to tell you guys that when we were younger and we would go to parties and, like, you know, I would smoke weed and I would drink a beer, you know, it never, what am I trying to say? Even from the first time I started, from the very first time, like, I did anything, anytime, I was always more fine than anyone else. Meaning, like, I could always drive, I could always handle myself. I did not know at the time that is like a pick me for addiction, alcoholism. You carry the cellular memory that's like, oh, been here before, game on, right? So I share that because at 21, I very quickly was like totally functioning alcoholic. At this point, I worked during the day, so the best way when you're working at these clubs, the best way, or the way to get the best sections, is to sell the most drinks. The way to sell the most drinks is to hustle drinks, to be like, hey, you know, if you pay the tab, I'll match you shot to shot. So how about that? I remember one time betting a man that I could out drink him and drink more tequila than he could if he paid the tab, and he took my bet. And I remember, now mind you also, whenever we were cocktail waitressing, we always had, or I always had a drink in the side. So I'm always drinking some super strong drink on the side. I probably have a few drinks on other tables that I have drank with other customers. And then I'm drinking with this dude, and I drank 16 shots with him. He got charged for 16 shots from me, and I really loved my tequila, so there was no non-alcoholic shots in there. I maintained his table, and if we had 4 or 5 tables with 4 or 5 people at any time, a lot of them were cash and carry, that's 20 to 25 open checks. So that shows you cognitively how I'm processing on that much alcohol, right? So, and this would be during a shift. Then, you know, the way that we work there is we're in this block of like all these bars. So all the bartenders from the surrounding bars would come in during the daytime, and if we would give them no tab, and so we would get these fat tips, right? And they would drink, and then we would get off work, and we would go return the favor. So after I drank the whole day of work, I would get off work, and I would go to the surrounding bars and sit at their bar and drink more alcohol. And I mean, I guess sometimes when I would want to go home, I don't even remember. I'm trying to think where the hell I lived then. I mean, it was just like, you know, I would go home, crash, wake up, do it again. I'm thinking about it now. Now, not too long into that process, I have the first presentation of alcoholism, and I don't realize it. What happens is, I wake up one morning, and I remember, because I lived with another girl that I cocktailed with, and I just felt like I was in a fog. I couldn't get with it, and I was very nervous. And I've always been very aware of my physical body. My heart rate was sped up. I felt like my blood pressure was higher than it was usually, and I just wasn't. I felt like contents under pressure, only you know, I was freaking, like, not checking into life, so it's not like I was consciously stressed about anything. So I remember feeling that way on the way there, and telling my friend that I just didn't feel right. And then right when I got there, the bartender asked me if I wanted celery in my Bloody Mary, and I said I did. And then once I started drinking my Bloody Mary, I felt fine. Once I reintroduced alcohol to the system. So during that time, I went through stage 1, stage 2 alcoholism like that. Those who have worked with me and heard my story are like, you bottomed out fast. And I'm like, yeah. So, let's see here. From this point, let's see here. This is when things start getting really yucky. Because I'm really drinking around the clock, and I really have no sense of myself. And I am putting myself in situations and in places with people where for some reason I think I need to be. Or for some reason, and yet I don't need to be with those people. I don't need to be with these situations. I don't need to be hooking up with these dudes. I don't need to be spending time at these places. But when I look back on it, I don't seem to have much regard for, I don't know. I guess I thought I did. I mean, I guess I thought all those things were cool, I suppose. I don't know. I wasn't like, pressed for help at this point yet, so I assumed that I just thought that that was fun. I say that because I look back on, getting drunk, hooking up with a dude, having sex with a dude that I'm not too attached to in any way, and my body is not even fully present, and nor is my emotional self or my spiritual self. It was never fun. It's not like it was ever feeling that great, and something I wanted to, like, afterwards was like, that was freaking fabulous, amazing, and I'm so glad I was there. It said I never. So I really don't know. I really think the honest answer is I just didn't think I was good enough for better, I guess. I really don't know. Anyway, so I go through like a year of just like fast ass partying. Lots of drugs, lots of men, lots of women, lots of just crazy, just crazy living, just waking up like, whoa, and, I mean, just, there was a couple times. I remember one time being with a friend, and I mean, I don't even know how we found ourselves at these places. We were at a party with a whole bunch of dudes. They were acting inappropriate to her. I ended up taking a swing at a couple of them. It just was, and it was always like that. It was just random. It was just craziness, And so this continued until at 22, I was not in a monogamous relationship. I was still acting like this. I got pregnant. I got pregnant with my twins, and but I didn't know they were twins. Of course, I thought it was one, and I really wanted to not be pregnant. I didn't think that was for me, especially not at that point. So my response to that was to go out and get as loaded as possible, and to drink and smoke and consume as much as much as I could, so that would solidify my decision, and that I would have to have an abortion after that because I had screwed up the baby. That was the thought process. All that happened was the next day I was more sick than I've ever been in my entire life. Literally could not move. I could not move. And I just hated myself. I just hated myself for what I had done. So I ended up deciding that I was going to be pregnant, and then shortly after that went to my initial appointment, and there I was, legs in the stirrups, and she says, I was like really sick on the way there. I was like an hour late because I had to puke 5 times. I had ruptured blood vessels in my eye, and she's listening to me and looking at me, and she gives me an ultrasound, and then she says, yes, I think I have a surprise for you. There's your baby, and there's your baby. I'm totally active alcoholic, drug addict. There's my legs. I go, shit. And I'm just like, what the? You know? I don't know what I'm doing here. So I decided to clean up my act, and I do. I do clean up my act. I don't smoke and drink and do drugs for the rest of my pregnancy. And then I'm still going to be the CEO of the corner office my whole pregnancy, mind you. I'm telling their dad that he needs to get a nanny because I ain't doing that shit. I ain't staying home. Yo. I mean, like, who do you think I am? And they are born. They're born, and I literally won't let anyone touch them. I'm like, don't touch them! And they're mine! And I'm all about these babies. And they're never going to be out of my sight. And this is just what I'm here for. This is what I'm on earth for, these babies. Everything changes. Everything changes. And I decided to breastfeed them. And that is really hard because they consume so much from my body. So I make it 4 months. And during that time, that was the motivating force for me to not drink and do drugs and smoke. So I made it that 4 months. And then after I quit breastfeeding, I just started right back into things quite slowly but surely. You know, 1 cigarette at night, 1 glass of wine at night. And then I'm pretty much roaring crazy very shortly again. Their dad and I have a very tumultuous breakup, and I leave with them when they are 6 months old. And the 3 of us, the girls and I, get our own apartment. And during this time, I am involved in multiple domestic violence issues, interactions, and situations and proceedings, to the point that I become a household name with the local sheriff's office and police department. That's how I'll phrase that. So that time in my life was crazy, and my thinking and where I was at that point was that if you had my life, you'd drink too. If you were dealing with what I was dealing with, you would drink too. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my story, and then and that worked for a while, and I was in court all the time. This is 2001. Yeah, 2001. And then, and I'm drinking to take the edge off. I'm drinking because things are so crazy. I'm drinking because I'm scared shitless. And shit, man, my life was upside down. I was one of the first people in this county to have a 911 tracking device on it, that when you hit send, it had a tracking device on the phone giving the police my location. So, remember I said that I want to keep it about me. So I just, the point is that it was extremely tumultuous. I was afraid, and I was using that fear to catapult and excuse and vilify my behavior. And I had set things up so that I could do what I wanted to do in the way that my upstairs neighbors were a couple, and she were wonderful helps to me. And so they would help me by watching the kids when I went to work, which at that point was only a couple nights a week. I went to the club a couple nights a week. And so, I would leave at like 5 or whatever, and to go on shift at like 6. And then the kids, my friends would either come down to my apartment or the kids would go to theirs, and they would watch over them, and the kids went to bed at like 8. And then I came home in the middle of the night, and I was there in the morning. Not always sober. Sometimes they had to wake up and help in the morning. The friends, that is. So point being that I had it set up so that I had people around me that I set up a safety net to help me because I was not responsible maintaining my duties. And I was making a lot of money. So I just was like, let me take care of this. Let me take care of that. Keep everybody happy. So they would do what I wanted them to do and be available in the capacities I wanted them to be available. Classic alcoholic behavior. It's my stage, damn it. So, let's see here. That is up for that goes on for a couple years. And then the stuff with that relationship, not the girls. The stuff with my ex at that point becomes really crazy, so I move out of that area and I move a ways a bit with my family and live there for a bit, and I just drink. At this point, let's see here, I have a health issue at this point. I am diagnosed with cancerous cells on my cervix, and they removed part of my cervix. It really did a loop on me. It made me feel some kind of way, energetically, spiritually, emotionally. It really took a toll on me. And at that time, in my very classic all or nothing extremist alcoholic thinking, I was like, well, if you have to chill out and heal this stupid ass cervix, then I'm not gonna do this and I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna eat what I want. I'm gonna drink what I want. I'm gonna blah blah blah. So, because it's important to emphasize, I was always very extreme in nature, so I could make drastic, rapid changes. Drastic changes really, really fast. What does this say? Can we do the Q&A period now? Time out. Now, okay, but please remind me what I'm saying when we go back. I would love to answer your questions. I don't know if we'll do it tonight, but we definitely will. So, see, I forgot where I was. I said I wasn't going to. I was sure I was going to remember. Somebody hit me. So, oh gosh, I forgot where I was. This is crazy. The kids, I move. Oh, that's right. So, it's important to realize that I manifest drastic changes very, very quickly. I have the ability to move from one mindset to the next like that. And when I shut it down, I shut it down. And I'm done. When I'm done, I'm done. I don't go back on things and reinvite them into my life. It takes me a long time to get to the done point. It really, really does. Thank God my degree of discomfort with which I will the degree of discomfort that I'll tolerate is less than it used to be. Because I used to take just a whole lot before I get fed up. But then once I'm fed up, I'm fed up. So, I decide at this point that I'm just throwing in the towel. I have this health issue. I've been given this diagnosis. It's just all bad in my head. It's all bad. It's all going to be bad. I was just really miserable. So I started drinking a lot, and I started eating just junk. I would eat at McDonald's a lot. I would eat a bunch of crap, and I gained about 60 pounds. So I was the size that I was pregnant with the girls, Only I wasn't pregnant with the girls. In fact, they was running around me. Literally, literally, Mercury retrograde. Let me slow down. In fact, let me take a break. How about we just chill for a sec? Let me get a chair. I almost choked myself. That would have been horrendous. They were running loops around me. My energy sucked. It happened so quickly, though, that I had no idea how fat I got until I saw a photo of myself. I was living with my parents, was totally not taking care of myself. I wasn't in an emotional state where I was really, of course I didn't realize that this at the time. I thought it was fine because, you know how, sometimes you think you're fine because you put one foot in front of the other and because you wake up every day and you feed yourself a modicum of food and you use the bathroom and you wipe your ass and you move from A to B. And so you're like, oh, I'm doing fine. But you're really asleep. You're really totally asleep. You're not engaged. You're not plugged in. You don't know who you are, what you're about. That's where I was. I was just going through the motions. I was taking care of two kids, two toddlers. Don't get me wrong. I had my good moments when I was plugged in. I haven't said it all. I was a binge drinker, so I didn't really, during this time I wasn't really a binge drinker though because we drank every night. So that wasn't really binging. It was just consistent. So I just was in this perpetual state of hold. It felt like hold. It felt like, I don't like this. I don't want to be here. I just don't know how to move out of it. I don't know how to shake loose of this. I remember, so I was living with my parents and, bless my parents. I'm sure you get your daughter that's just there and like, she's got two babies, We had gone on a beach trip and we had to take photos for the passes. And I saw the photo of me and I was like, dude, what? Like, who is that? And because you see in my head, I was like, I'm like, when I don't lift, I'm a skinny girl. I'm boobs in a butt and like a skinny girl. I'm tall and here's my belly button. So I've got really long legs and, I didn't have this before. These came after. So, in my head, that's what I am. So seeing that picture of me was like, whoa, this is craziness. I just couldn't get my head around it. And that's what it took for me. It took for me seeing that picture to realize that I was not looking at all like I wanted to look. It still wasn't about how I was feeling, who I was. It was about how I looked. So I decided to do something about that. Again, not for the quality of life, but because my stomach was hanging out over my pants and my ass didn't look like my ass. So, I, at this time, always had fitness goals and aspirations. I used to look at magazines and think about competing, but I just couldn't keep it together. Just like every other aspect of life, I really just couldn't keep it together. During this time, I met a man that I ended up, the night, it was like the first night I spent with him, I remember I had got, we lived with my parents, right? And I had got all butthurt about something, pissed off. Who knows what I was pissed off about? I used to throw bonfires like nobody's business. You pissed me off? Oh my God. Like I would get, like the cops would get called. I was so crazy. If you weren't going to do what I wanted you to do, So who knows what I had got butthurt about. But anyway, I had taken my kids and we were staying at a hotel because I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. But anyway, he came and met me there. And I'm sure I gave him some good spiel about how miserable my life was and how, it just was craziness and craziness. Never mind that I'm the one drinking in a hotel when I have a place to go. But, so we ended up moving in with him. And we, meaning the girls and I, we were there for quite a long time. We had a relationship for quite a long time. We ended up being together for 8 years. I was using and drinking for 6 of it. So, in the beginning, at this point, let's see here. right before I meet him, I get a DUI. Cause like I said, at this point, that's life. Like I just take care of my kids. Like I say it like this because I'm there every day, right? I'm feeding them. I'm changing their diapers. I'm there, but like to me, it's not like I'm there now. Do you know what I mean? Like I get to do it again with my son, and I wasn't there then like I am now. So that's what I mean by that. I was there, but I went out with a friend one night and see, he didn't know that in Classic Heather Forum, by this point, I knew we were going out, so I had gone to probably tan and get my nails done, something like that during that time. And so I used to take those little individual shooters with me because I could drink them and ditch them. And then I wouldn't have an open container in the car. So I would set out with quite a few of those. And and you know, if you drink vodka, no one can smell it. It's so stupid. When you metabolize as much liquor as I had. So I had been drinking during the day. I had been drinking all day. I had shooters with me. I don't know how many shots I'd had. But by the time he and I went to dinner, we ate some dinner, and I think I ordered what I usually did. I always drink a glass of wine with a shot. Like, and I was Jose Cuervo's bitch. So I would drink some tequila with a glass of wine, and I think it was probably like one glass of wine, one shot that day, or something small for me anyway, you know, and anyone who had spent any time with me and we had drank together knew that I could hold my own. So I remember when we left that place, that was a beautiful story. Oh, Jesus. That's such a story. I'll tell that story another time. I'll tell the story of the night I got the DUI another time because it's a doozy. I'll totally love to share that. But anyway, I got a DUI that night in 2001, and I was remanded to a program of recovery and to alcohol education and state-sanctioned programs, moms with substance abuse issues and stuff like that. So I was really plugged in. I had to go to court, and it was very interesting. I had 0 offenses. I mean, I didn't even have a speeding ticket. I had nothing. Like, I hadn't been in any kind of trouble in any kind of way. And I got slammed the maximum penalty in every way. Like, I got an interlock system put on my car for a year. I had to go to jail. I had to go to jail, and that was the first time I went to jail, and the first time I taught a fitness class in jail. I became a freaking flyer. And detox too. Anyway, so, let's see here. So I got the maximum penalty in every way, and I really felt like there was a lot of therapists during that time that were really there trying to help me. They were there in a system that they thought was useful, and they were there in a capacity that they were really trying to help me. But I wasn't receptive to it at the time. I just really wanted people to leave me alone, let me do what I wanted to do. So at this point, my list of offenses starts to get really bad. Because now I have someone that's there and can help watch the kids. And so I feel safe in the way that they'll be all right, you know? So this is when things start getting really out of control. And this is also when things become hazy because my benders became worse and worse, and my injuries to myself and to others became worse. Let's see here. It's probably best to just give a sum up. I mean, like, there's a few bell ringers during this time. This is when I wreck my car with my kids in it. This is when I crack my skull open and I get a bleed in my brain. jumped out of a 3-story building, jumped out of multiple cars. I call the cops and I get locked up. I bring violence into the home I live in. And I brought it there and I started it. And then and then it was there. And then it was there. And that didn't get any better for a really long time. Then it was on. So that time was crazy. I was actively involved in all these things, but I wasn't really letting anybody help me. For quite a while, I wanted to do better. I wanted to have, here, I'm distracted. Hold on just a second. Are you okay? Is your movie on? Are you turning another on? Okay. I had to check on that. I could hear from way in the other room that it was not the sound I was hearing from earlier. So, sorry about that. I lose myself completely during this time. I completely check out from life. I hate who I am. I do things like go on family vacation and tell the family that I'm going to go, I don't even remember, like get something, maybe get a pack of cigarettes or whatever I smoked at the time. And then I just disappear. I go to neighboring casinos and I stay gone the whole night and I come back the next morning. So many times, just I mess things up, I leave things unsafe. I hurt people. I start fights. I yell. I do a whole bunch of stuff. I do a whole bunch of damage. It was so tumultuous for my kids during this time. I just paused because when I was thinking about the family trip where I disappeared, there's two things. There's two instances when my kids were little, my girls were little, that I remember and that just they hurt my heart. And I hope they always hurt my heart to the degree that they hurt right now. That time when we went on this family vacation, we went to Atlantic City. And I had told them that I don't remember where I said I was going to go, but I remember what I did. I went to the bar and I met this woman. In retrospect, she's probably just as alcoholic as I was. She was just as excited as I was to have someone that just wanted to just drink, no questions asked, and just go places and dance and just drink and be crazy. And so that's what we did. And I remember, I don't even remember who I was with that got me back to the casino, that took me home. I mean, there's so many strangers throughout my life and so many stories of people bringing me back and dropping me off. One guy flipping bought a hotel room one night and put me in it, like tucked me in with this business card and didn't do anything to me. There's just so many times, like when Spirit was there in so many forms, you know what I mean? Like God watching over me in so many ways. Anyway, I came in that morning and my daughter had fallen asleep next to the door on the floor, wanting her mommy to come back. And she was afraid. The other one is I used to sing to them at night from the time they were little. You know, they had colic when they were little, so I would hold them both and I would sing to them. And I remember in classic Heather form, you challenge me, I gotta get you. My dad was like, you're not gonna be able to do that forever. And I was like, yeah, I am. So that was my thing, to always be able to hold both my girls and sing to them. So I did so regularly, and there were songs that at that point one of my girls couldn't listen to because she would say that they made her think about me. And it's funny, to this day, if that song comes on, she and I, it happened not too long, we're like, ah, no matter where we are. Which is beautiful. So anyway, this continues. I continue to wreck life. And I do this for 6 years. And then people are starting to wonder, like at the gym I work at, the people are saying, they're calling me the sickest healthy person they've ever met. Meaning, like, I'm so healthy, and yet I'll show up after having had a stomach flu for a week and I've lost 10 pounds. Because when you're built like me and you eat and you put all this effort into putting all this on, and then you go on a liquid alcohol diet for a week, 8 days, 9 days, I would lose 10 to 15 pounds during that time, and I would look extremely skinny and extremely malnourished, going from like full to like, and it would happen super quickly. So people were catching on to me. The ex had said, you know what, like, this is enough. Like, you need to get your stuff together, or you need to get on. And I was like, yeah, okay, I agree, you know. And then I had been to detox several times at this point. Like, one time I was detained for detox. I had a .416 blood alcohol level. Walking, talking coherently, giving nutrition advice to the sheriff deputy that detained me. I just was, things are just, I mean, just out of control. They were just out of control. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't getting any better. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. On April 1st of 2007, I had been sober for a few months, and then on April 1st, I decided to drink after just having been in detox a little while. And I remember thinking, ha 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 ha, it's just April Fool's, it won't count, like, jokingly. And I took off and did what I wanted to do. And I came back on April 3rd, and there was no one in the house. There was no one in the house, and he and the kids were gone. And nobody was blowing up my phone asking me where I was or was I coming. And they had gone to the beach. They had gone to the beach and they had left me, and they had not bothered to, they didn't really care if I was coming or where I was, because at that point my behavior was so random and problematic that it was probably best that I didn't. So I remember I came home. I don't think I had any money with me. I don't think I had any booze with me. It was the one time ever that I had not been locked up or in trouble. And my kids weren't there, though, and nobody was wondering where I was. And in that moment, I looked around my house and I realized that my children's life was moving on, and it was moving on without me. And that they were accustomed to the fact that I wasn't there. And they were dealing with it accordingly. And I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't deal with my kids not, like I couldn't deal with the disconnect from my kids. And it was the first time, it's the one time I can remember that I didn't get in a fight. I didn't get locked up. I didn't go to detox. I didn't get arrested. I didn't hurt myself or someone else in any way. Like, it was just like, it was a boring bender. And I was just done. I was just done in that moment. There was just, we talk about in a program of recovery, surrendering our will, and people would say to me, you just need to surrender it. And I'm like, yeah, I heard that a few freaking fucking 1,000 motherfucking times. Like, what's that mean? What's that mean, surrender your will? And in that moment, and I don't even know now if I understand what that means, but I know that in that moment, I just didn't have any resistance. I didn't have any more fight in me. Like, I was like, man, fuck it. Fuck fuck this. Like, my kids don't even give a fuck, you know? And I had no rebuttal for that, you know? Smart ass Heather that always had some shit to say and something to come back with. I had nothing except utter devastation. And I would call it a soul bankruptcy. Like, that to me was devastating. Because, like I told you, once those babies came out my body and I saw them in that first second, that was my purpose here. Them. And to have like a disconnect where it wasn't, I mean, like nobody, it just was just too much. So I remember that day I went to a meeting of recovery. I walked in and everything was different. And I sat there in a completely different capacity that day. I sat there ready to learn. And I sat there with like no smart ass mouth, like no comeback, no bullshit. Like, I would go there so many times and I would approach recovery or change so many times with like one foot in the change and one foot in the I still got it my way shit, you know? And my way was so not working. Like there was no evidence that my way was working at all. And yet I as long as I had something to show, like as long as my job was still okay, or as long as, you know, I hadn't shown the kids my ass, and I don't mean literally, I mean like I hadn't acted a fool at home, in a certain period of time, that I would feel like I was maintaining the home front, you know? As long as I had one aspect of the front that I could present, then I felt like that was enough, and then this time I had nothing. In that moment, my boss, he had said, you know, around the same time, he's like, we figure you're either an alcoholic or an addict or a combination of both. And you probably need to get some help. The boyfriend was like, this, you know, time's up. That was it. And I'm like, yep, I know. And the thing with my kids, I just, you know, they didn't have to say anything. The fact that they weren't saying anything was it. So I sat in that meeting that day, and I decided it just didn't really need to be anywhere else. That's where I needed to be. And I became willing to learn a new way of thinking, of behaving, and of existing. Thank God. I often share when I am in a meeting of recovery and there's new people there that when we're little and we're in the sandbox and some kid's like, ooh, I want to be a fireman. Another one's like, ooh, I want to be a soldier. And this one's like, I want to be a plumber. And this little girl says, I want to be this and this. Nobody says I want to be an alcoholic and addict and like rape and pillage everything and everyone in my path. Nobody says that, you know. Nobody says, yo, I want to jack up society and get locked up a lot. And yet, if that's what I had to be to bring me to a program of recovery that taught me how to live as a human being and an active member of my community, I think I hit the lotto. I really do. So, that program of living became my program of living, became my everything. I started listening to what people told me to do, and I started asking for help. That was extremely hard, and extremely hard to let myself be seen at first, because I really, you know, I have twins, and when they were little, one of them would try to walk and she would fall down, and she would try to walk and she would fall down, and she would try to walk and she would fall down. The other one would just sit there and look at her, and we were like, wonder when she's gonna try. And then one day, I remember my mom had come to visit. I stepped out, my mom calls me, my mom's like, she walked, and she walked perfectly, like across the whole floor. And I was like, damn her. I bet she was practicing in her room. And I bet she was. We both agree that she probably was when she was little, practicing when nobody was watching to make sure she could do it. Well, that she gets it. It comes by naturally. I like to look poised. I like to walk and you not see me trip. I like for you to think I don't have any struggles. So I was willing to be there, but to be authentic and to be seen was a whole nother level for me. So I got to get born in that program. I got to get born in there, and I got to learn a new way of living. And I got to make the first connections with myself by eliminating the substances that I had been escaping to, and the behaviors that I had been escaping to that kept me from living life on an authentic level and truly meeting myself. I have a lot to say about that, but I'm thinking that that probably brings me to the current chapter. So I'm thinking that I will probably continue this another time with once I got sober, because it's a whole nother chapter of living. Because once I got sober from alcohol and drugs, that was the most immediate pressing thing. And then once I'd removed those substances for a while, I got introduced to myself, and that was a whole different ball game, because then that was a whole nother ball of wax that I had to recover from. That's why I say it's addiction to my humanity, because the first major red flag, and I call it the evolution of Heather, is the drugs and the alcohol, the eating disorders, the things that were really apparent. My alcoholism was so freaking flagrant that the state of Virginia, there's a couple cops there that know my first, middle, and last name. And when I go to visit sometimes, if he ever sees me, I was at the movies not too long ago, and I heard this. I'm not even going to say it. He hollered out with the whole thing, and I was like, no way! Like, this is years later, and he remembered. So, point is that, it was easy to know that my alcoholism was a problem. After I was able to live a life where drugs and alcohol were no longer a daily struggle for me, there were other things that were. Anxiety, depression, shame and self-depreciation, choosing bad relationships, putting myself in situations that don't serve me, that stuff came after. That was like stage 2. So the first stage was removing the shit that's gonna kill me, and I got taught that too. Eliminate the crap in the order it will kill you. If you're shooting heroin and you smoke cigarettes and you drink soda and you like donuts and you're like showing up and you're like, I want to drink more water and I'm going to remove the donuts, that's great, but that's not really the order we need to be going in, So that's phase 1. And at this point, I think that's long enough to keep you all. That brings me into being sober and starting to meet myself, and I will come on here again and talk about that again. Maybe I'll have YouTube figured out by that time. Maybe I won't. A little flex. Look at that. Yo, yo, yo. How about that? And can I tell you, I'm just as strong, and I'm vegan. Anyway, that's all I have. I really thank you for joining me, and if you guys want to leave comments and you want to leave questions, I would love to see your comments, and I would love to answer your questions. And I really thank you. I love each and every one of you, and I'm really grateful to have the community we have on here. You guys have no idea how important you are to me, and how grateful I am to be here. So without further ado, I'm going to get off here, and I shall return another day. I thank you so much, and I love you.